Welcome back to the Gleam Fishing Channel. On the Gleam again today. It's a Sunday morning actually. It's one of those cold southwest mornings, the sort of morning that I never used to like, standing at the tray out in the bay sorting oysters and scallops. You know, one of those ones that you sort of get chilled to the bone. So yeah, I'm pretty glad that we're sitting in the Gleam wheelhouse where it's a bit warmer today. I just want to thank you all. Yesterday we hit a bit of a milestone for the channel, 1,000 subscribers. So that's the first milestone, and we really want to keep growing it. And it's up to you when you consider how many of you have told me that you don't know how to subscribe. 1,000 in a period of about 8 to 10 weeks is pretty good going. So it's good to know 1,000 of you have managed to coerce your kids and grandkids into helping you subscribe. Because we have had a fair bit of feedback with, people like myself that we haven't quite figured that out yet. So well done, and let's keep it going. I thought today we'll talk about something a little bit different. We'll probably do a bit of an update on what's happening in the industry. For during the comments that we've had, which have been huge. We've had so many comments. And it's been bloody great because, we've found new family members. So you might remember we did one on the Guard family. We've had members of the Guard family going all the way back to Jackie Guard. We never knew existed. They've reached out. We've had found a lot of boats, a lot of Jack Guard boats. We posted the one on Jack Guard, so we've had a lot of pictures of lost boats, lost Jack Guard boats. That's been really awesome. We've had people reach out that served their time with Jack or Grandad, Jack Guard, in the boat shed. They're now spread around Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. So the training that he did with the adult and junior apprenticeships, and now they're building boats around the world. So that's pretty humbling to know that that's happening. But also the retired fishers and the retired fishermen, and the people that have been in the industry and gone, long sort of forgotten about, and they're reaching out and saying, bloody great, thanks. It's really good to get an update and know what's going on, and it gives us a bit of a glimpse of the yesteryear, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from those. We're taking them down memory lane, and that's the purpose of the channel, is so we can celebrate what we've done, where we've been, because we know it's a really good industry and we've done some really cool stuff. So I sort of thought what I'll do is just give you a little bit of an update on what we've been up to, because it's been a pretty darn busy month, to be perfectly honest. There's been a couple of events that we've been organised and sort of involved in, and I just thought I'll give you a bit of a current affairs update. The first one was, and sorry, I probably will look sideways every now and then to refer to my notes, because as I said previously, I'm not 24 anymore, and the memory's not what it used to be. But so the first one was that, like every year in Nelson, we have the annual blessing of the fishing fleet. So that was the 16th and 17th of May this year, so it's normally around about May. And what it is, it started 23 years ago by a group of key people and high-profile people like Peter Talley and Charles Hufflett, and I know my uncle was involved, Chris Guard, and Robert Palmer and Mike Smith, and there's Chris Rain, and quite a few icons in the industry got together and thought, we need something to celebrate the industry, particularly in Nelson, because I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a significant portion of the community that work for or with or in the fishing industry. So we want to celebrate that. And we're really fortunate around the waterfront. We've got the Sunderland Marine Pier, so sponsored by Sunderland Marine Insurance. So, well worthy of note, because they do a lot for the industry, that crowd. We've got a pier around there, and it's got a statue. So we'll probably put a photo up of the statue, and the statue is actually of a fisherman. And it's a place for us to go and remember those that have gone before us, or those that have lost their lives at sea. For me, it's a bit of a pilgrimage, right? So I've been going, I think I've been to probably all 23 of them. we do a little bit of the organising, myself and Shalane and Courtney and my team. We do a bit of organising with Tallies and Sea Lord, and it's quite a really good collaboration. We all come together. And I normally do the announcement for the boats. So when the boats go round, so what we do, we have a parade of fishing boats and some work boats and aquaculture boats, and they go round and they get a blessing. We had Arch Harvey Ruru there this year. And it's a really sombering affair. We had some cool stuff. We had sort of like a tug of war between the Port Nelson boats. We had the Coast Guard there. We had the Harbour Master, from the council there. They're all heavily involved. We had Surf Life Saving, the Nelson Yacht Club. Sorry if I missed anyone else out, but, Nelson Diving Services. We had fishing boats there. We had, Chinna had his boats there. We had the Natalie J. We had the Kiwi. Obviously the Gleam. The Gleam was there. It's an annual pilgrimage for her. The Kathleen G. Quite a number of, little old Kiwi, quite a number of boats there, just sort of to recognise the importance of the industry. The blessing is sort of a 2-day thing. So it starts on the Friday night. And we do a fireworks display for the community. So the one we did this year was probably the largest fireworks display that the Nelson community's seen for a long time. It started at 6:30, and largely what we do is we drive a truck and trailer onto a barge. So the barge was supplied by Able Tasman Sea Shuttles, which is grateful for them. They bring it over from the park. We load the fireworks on it, and they go and anchor between Hawlashore Island and Tahuna Beach. So probably 200 or 300 metres off the beach, and the fireworks are let go from there. So we had food carts this year. So it was a great community event. We don't know exactly, but we reckon there's about 4,000 people from the community between the beach and enjoying the food carts. Traffic was chaos. We had a traffic management plan in place, but there was a lot of people there, but it was a really great event. The feedback on the fireworks was really significant. We had some 8-inch shells. So fireworks are measured in dimensions, so 8-inch shells. And we had one 10-inch shell. So this 10-inch shell, they reckon, was the largest one to ever go off in Nelson, and she was a cracker. So the fireworks went for sort of 10, 15 minutes, and it was hugely popular and will continue to do that. That's largely the start of the celebration of the fishing fleet. Then on the Saturday, sort of starting about 1 o'clock, goes from 1 to 3, around at the pier, with the big statue. We have fish and chips and fish filleting and a fish auction, and there's Tallies and Sea Lord and the Rotary and so many Solanders, so many organisations are there helping and chipping in. And it's bloody good, to be fair. We have the local dignitaries come. This year was extra special because, as I said, the purpose is to remember those that have gone before us, and those, to bless the vessels for the upcoming fishing fleet or fishing season, which, the Hoki starts shortly. And, we're really, really, for me, it's what's quite sombering is we ring the bell like 10 times, and then we have a minute silence, and I always get a bit of a lump in my throat because if you've spent a lifetime in the industry, like in any industry, but particularly in ours, because we're a close, tight-knit family, whether you're a current fisherman, a retired fisherman, or, wherever you are in the seafood industry, we're one big family, right? And I don't know about you, but when you hear someone's lost their life at sea or something tragic has happened, it's like I sulk. It's like it was my friends or my family. Most of them I knew of, may not have actually known them directly, but you feel it. And when I go to that blessing the fleet, all of that emotion comes back in. So it's pretty important, and I'll continue to do that because it's a bloody good event, and it's great that the Nelson community supports it. We probably had a couple thousand, 2,500 people at the pier, and some of the cool things that we had, for example, we had the boats do the parade. We have like a competition best dressed boat. And you got all the community on the wharf or on the pier looking out. We had really fortunate, we had the Corsair, so an old Navy Corsair come out. Now, he flew all the way down from Auckland to do an air display for us, and that was fantastic. That was a lot of people say, what's a World War II aircraft got to do with the blessing of the fishing fleet? Largely don't care. It's just bloody good. And the feedback from the fishermen and the people on the community said, bring that back, we'll have that again. So it was really cool. So we had quite a few on-water events, and keep an eye out for it. So it's the Nelson blessing of the fishing fleet around about May every year. For those of you that are in the industry, get to Nelson and come to it and support it, because it's worthwhile. So we've sort of been involved in that. That's been keeping us pretty busy. We also do a few other things, I guess, as guard safety. And it's not really a punt, but we spend a lot of time helping operators in the industry with MOS and health and safety. We also do, we run First Mate New Zealand, which is the seafood sector support network. So, we provide free well-being or business support. We can hook you up if things are tough. We can try and hook you up with different support services to help things go a bit better. The other thing we do, and you should have a look at it, is Marine Safe. So the website's marinesafe.nz. Look, it's free online fisherman and fisher training courses. You can do them on your phone, on your tablet, you can do them at sea, whatever. Really good to do. They cover things like general safety, risk management, wharf safety. There's some mental health stuff there. There's a crew for the induction crew. Stuff on different fishing gear. These things take 5 or 10 minutes, on the phone. You complete a few questions, and then you get a certificate. It's all free. Print those out, chuck them in your MTOP before Maritime New Zealand come down and audit you. MNZ really enjoy them. They're supporting them, and again, that's free stuff for you in the fishing industry. One of the other things that we did, I've just come back from, literally Friday, so that was 29th and 30th of May, because this podcast will play in a week's time, right? So on the 29th and 30th of May, went to Christchurch for the Federation of Commercial Fishermen annual conference. So that's another bit of a pilgrimage, right? So a lot of people from the fishing industry, a lot of grey hair. Really good to see a few young ones coming through as well. But generally, I don't know there must have been 150 people there from the industry. And it's a really good opportunity to get an update of what's happening in the industry. What rules and regulations are coming, who's doing what, who's who in the zoo, and what do we need to be mindful of, what do we need to have a bit of input into. So I like to go there and get an update. And look, I encourage you to go as well. Obviously there's a membership fee, but it's bloody important. When you're out there fishing, doing the doey, someone's got to be doing the hooey in the back end. Someone's got to be doing the consultation, doing the paperwork, submitting on the applications for marine reserves and, gear changes and closures and all of those things that restrict you and your ability to do your job. The Federation is actually working flat out in the background to sort it out. So it's really important. We need to support those that support us. So, if you're not a member, then think about it. This is not an infomercial, but at the end of the day, I see a lot of value in it. So we had a lot of good presentations. The conference was opened by Shane Jones, Minister of Oceans and Fisheries, so that was bloody good. And it's really good and positive to have someone in government that's supporting us, right? So we're not all feeling like we're getting picked on from the highest levels. You've got someone there that's a fan and an advocate, and that's really, really uplifting. And I think one of the themes that someone said, I heard a fisherman say from this particular conference, was it's the slowing of the tide, the slowing of the tide of negativity, because there was actually a taste of positivity which we haven't seen for 4 or 5 years. One of the fishermen there was saying, look, 4 or 5 years ago, fishermen were crying. We literally had quite a few in tears. The pressure was too much, but there was actually a few smiles and laughs and a bit of camaraderie back again. So that was bloody good. So some of the other speakers we had there, we had FishServe giving a bit of an update. We had MPI there, so they gave us a bit of an update on some of the legislative changes, things like landing and discards. and reporting and all those. A lot of those things are going to largely be positive for us. So trying to get rid of some of that burden of extra regulation. So that's bloody helpful. We had they did a session on innovation. So that was NPI. I think there's going to be a series of workshops coming out to try and get fishermen in to talk about different ways of innovation, how we can use that to grow and advance the industry. So look forward to those. We had a really cool guy there, Tim Lee. So Tim Lee's an artist. He was also at the seafood conference last year, and we'll bang a picture or two of his up. So what he does, he uses charcoal and a charcoal pencil to draw seafood. And if you look at the level of detail, it's bloody incredible. Like, you would think it was a zoomed in photo, but this guy is just passionate about drawing seafood. And it started years ago when he was a kid and his parents had a fish and chip shop. And I know you'll all remember, and some of them are still around now, going into a fish and chip shop and they had that New Zealand seafood poster with all the different species on it. We all grew up with that, and that's actually what spurred Tim into drawing seafood. So, the industry and those silly little things like that impact people positively right across the community to the level where he's now made a career out of it. So that's that was bloody awesome. We had Maritime New Zealand there. So Maritime New Zealand talked a bit about their harm prevention program. So they want to work with industry to do a few things to improve safety where they can. One of those things we spoke about in the last podcast was the bluefin. The bluefin tuna guide that we developed between industry and Maritime New Zealand, and we had myself and Steve Potter talk about that because we were involved in that. So so in that that last podcast went pretty well. We've had 5,000 views in the last 24 hours, so it's by far the best. I don't know what the secret sauce was, but it's going pretty bloody well. And if you think you can beat it, because I know what you like, every one of you fishermen out there, you're a competitor. If you think you can beat 5,000, get in touch, because we'll throw you in front of a camera. Make sure you're in good form. We like to, if you've got a few videos or photos, or you can bring something with you, so people really engage if you've got, you show them something when you're talking about it. So if you think you can beat 5,000 in 24 hours, I want to hear from you, and we'll bang the camera in front of you, and the audience will tell. So going back to the Federation conference, so Maritime New Zealand also talked about, there's some electrical standards changes coming in, there's some stability stuff, and largely the Federation is looking, supporting and fighting and debating where required to make sure these are positive, not negative changes. One of the positive things that we think is going to come through in these changes is your life raft. Currently, life raft annual servicing for fishing boats is a pain in the ass. You've got to ship it away, can cost a couple grand or more every year. But it looks like we've probably had a win there, and it looks like that servicing will go to 2 years, which is fantastic. The manufacturers say that you only need to service them every 2 or 3 years, and yet we've been having to service them annually. So that's a real positive change that'll probably save every fishing vessel a couple grand or more a year. So again, things like that are really important, and organisations like the Federation of Commercial Fishermen are battling this stuff all the time to try and get you the win. So largely, and we had Stallard Law there as well, talking about potential changes to Corporated Society Act, and really how that impacts the Federation. There was a conversation about what's the future of the Federation, what's the model look like, do they merge with the Inshore Council or Seafood New Zealand, or, what do fishermen want? So that's a really important conversation to sort of talk about the future of the industry. So that's, largely it. On the Friday night at the Federation conference, after all the talking and all the great speakers, we had the annual Shipwreck Trust auction. So that's bloody good as well, right? So I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but we've got the Shipwreck Welfare Trust. So that's an organisation. I'm a trustee on that, and there's a few other really keen industry people. And what we do, if one of you or your crew is lost at sea, then that Shipwreck Welfare Trust will come in to your dependents, whether it's your wife, your partner, or your children, that you looked after and you supported. We will pay them 3 installments over about 5 months to help get them through the loop. And that can be $10,000. Well, it is normally $10,000 in 3 installments. Absolutely no strings attached. You just have to be the dependent of someone lost at sea in the fishing industry. So that's a really important trust and something I'm really, really stoked to be part of. So what we do is this auction, the annual auction at the Federation Conference, that fundraising goes into that fund. So that's really important. This year we raised 30 odd K. So it's a little bit down on last year, but things are a bit tighter. And I think, to be fair, we probably started the auction a bit soon because the fishermen weren't drunk enough. Normally the strategy is fill them up with fish and chips, give them plenty of beer, and then start the auction when they start getting rowdy. And you watch, I think we've had nearly $50,000 raised in a couple years as the fishermen start. Again, you're all competitors, you compete against each other. And look, I've seen people pay $5,000 bloody near for a paperclip because it's about the charity, right? It's all about giving back to those that have lost someone at sea. So it's a really, really worthwhile thing. And I'd love to see you there next year. We had, big shout out to Pat Nyon, fisherman down Bluff. So he got the Electronic Navigation Award, annual award for all the good stuff he's done. So he's another guy that gives back. He's in the industry. He's involved in the Federation, other trusts. He's a first mate navigator. There was also the Young Marine Farmers Award. So that was given out. And that was really cool. So, obviously you've got to be under 35 for those Young Farmers and Young Fishermen Award, something that probably I won't see for a year or two. So, but it was really good. So the conference for me is an annual opportunity to catch up with those old sea dogs and people in the industry that we haven't seen for a year. As I said, it was a wave of grey hair, a wave of walking sticks, but we did see a lot of youth coming through. So take heart, there is a future. We definitely saw more young fishermen and marine farmers this year than we've seen for a couple of years. So it was really positive, and I enjoyed it, and I'll be there next year, so it'd be bloody good to see you there. Largely, I think, looking at my notes, and also a bit of a shout out for Bob. So you've seen Bob's photos. He's sitting on the tip head taking photos of your boats going in and out of the Greymouth Bar. So he provided us with some images in that last podcast, so we appreciate that. That's largely it for me. So please, stay in touch. Get in touch if you think you've got a great, interesting story to tell. Please subscribe. That's the thing. We've got to keep growing the channel. So keep in touch, and thanks for watching.